Woman who lost her sister to gun violence in Philadelphia. Happened just before Christmas inside an apartment in North Philadelphia. Police say a man and a woman were both killed. Well, tonight the woman's sister says she was a mother of two.
On the cold evening of December 19, 2024, the streets of North Philadelphia were shaken by a horrific discovery that would leave the community reeling. Inside an apartment on West Diamond Street, a chilling scene was found, a double homicide that remains unsolved to this very day. Jocelynn Marshall, a beloved mother, and her boyfriend were shot multiple times, but the mystery surrounding their deaths continues to haunt those who loved them. Who could have done this? Was it a dispute gone wrong or something much more sinister? What could have led to such a brutal act? Stick around as we dive deep into the details of this unsolved case and the haunting questions that still linger. Welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where we unravel the chilling details of real-life crimes that have stunned communities and left unanswered questions. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries, real-life investigations, and the quest for justice, make sure to subscribe and join us on this journey into the world of true crime. Let's get started with today's story. In an apartment on the 1800 block of West Diamond Street, Philadelphia, two lives were violently taken. Jocelynn Marshall, a 35-year-old mother of two, and her boyfriend were found shot multiple times. The scene was unsettling, no weapons were recovered, and there were no signs of forced entry. It seemed as though the killer had planned this carefully, leaving behind little evidence for investigators to follow. The absence of crucial clues only deepened the mystery. Was this a crime of passion, or was it something more calculated? Authorities were left with more questions than answers, and no arrests have been made to this day. Jocelynn was a beloved mother, known for her warm heart and dedication to her two sons, ages 18 and 6. She had a reputation for being caring and reliable, always putting her family first. Those who knew her best described her as a person who was quick to lend a helping hand and make others feel welcome. She was especially close to her siblings, Brea and Walter, who are now left with the heavy burden of raising her two young children. The loss has been devastating for her family, who can't understand why anyone would want to harm her. Jocelyn's friends and family remember her as a person who always had a smile on her face, someone who could light up a room with her presence. She was a mother who worked hard to provide for her children, and her death has left a gaping hole in the lives of those who loved her. Her tragic passing has also left many unanswered questions. Who would want to take this woman's life, and why? The investigation continues, but with each passing day, the search for answers grows more urgent. The days leading up to the tragic murder of Jocelynn Marshall were seemingly normal, but it's often the most mundane moments that hide the darkest secrets. On the day before her death, Jocelynn was last seen with her boyfriend, spending time together, although their interactions may have been less than perfect. No one could have predicted that what seemed like a typical evening would take such a violent turn. There were no obvious signs that anything was wrong, but sometimes the cracks in relationships aren't visible to the outside world. Did the couple have an altercation that night? Speculation runs wild, but the truth remains elusive. Could an argument have escalated into something deadly? Those close to Jocelynn mentioned that, like many relationships, there were moments of tension, but nothing that seemed to suggest it would lead to such a horrifying outcome. Could there have been financial stress or personal issues that pushed things over the edge? It's possible that something happened between them that night, something that, if known, could provide a clearer picture of why Jocelynn and her boyfriend were targeted. But until the investigation uncovers more, these remain nothing more than unanswered questions. Police arrived at the apartment on West Diamond Street after a concerned call, only to find the bodies of Jocelynn and her boyfriend. Both had been shot multiple times, a brutal crime that left investigators and loved ones in disbelief. The scene, however, offered little in the way of answers. No weapons were recovered from the apartment, and there were no signs of forced entry. Whoever was responsible for this crime seemed to know exactly what they were doing, leaving behind almost no trace of their presence. With the lack of evidence, investigators were forced to start from scratch, and the case quickly became a cold puzzle with more questions than answers. Despite the intensity of the investigation, no arrests have been made. The police are working tirelessly, but so far, no clear motive has surfaced. Was it an act of passion or premeditated violence? The absence of key evidence leaves the door wide open for many possible scenarios, but each leads to more uncertainty. The community and Jocelyn's family are left waiting for answers, but with each passing day, the hope of finding the truth seems to slip further away. Before we dive deeper into the investigation, take a second to hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more about cases just like this. Let's keep spreading the truth together. The search for justice continues, and with your support, we can shine a light on the unanswered questions. The investigation into Jocelynn Marshall's tragic death has been nothing short of baffling. With no arrests made and few clues to follow, the case remains unsolved, leaving everyone from her family to the authorities searching for answers. What we know so far paints a picture of a crime scene with more questions than facts, and it's precisely this uncertainty that has kept both the police and the public on edge. The most chilling part of the investigation is the absence of arrests. Despite the fact that Jocelynn was a well-loved figure in her community and her death was clearly violent, no one has been taken into custody. Authorities have sifted through what little evidence they've found, but so far, they haven't been able to connect the dots to a suspect. This lack of progress is understandably frustrating for Jocelyn's family, who are desperate for justice, and it raises the unsettling possibility that the person responsible is still out there, free to roam. What's even more disturbing is that no weapons were found at the scene of the crime. This is incredibly unusual for a double homicide of this nature. It suggests that the killer either had a well-planned escape or knew exactly how to cover their tracks. With no firearm left behind, investigators are left scrambling to find any physical evidence that could point them in the right direction. The absence of weapons also deepens the mystery. Was this an act of impulsive rage, or was it something more calculated, where the weapon was disposed of immediately after the crime was committed? Perhaps the most perplexing aspect of the investigation is the unclear motive. Why were Jocelynn and her boyfriend targeted in such a violent way? Investigators have yet to uncover a clear motive, leaving them to speculate on various possibilities. Could it have been a personal dispute that spiraled out of control? The couple was known to have occasional disagreements, but nothing that seemed severe enough to result in such an extreme outcome. Could jealousy or an unresolved issue between the two have played a role in escalating the situation? Or was there something more sinister at play, something neither Jocelynn nor her boyfriend had foreseen? With no definitive answers, the case remains in limbo, and the public's sense of unease grows as each day goes by without progress. In an effort to encourage people to come forward with information, authorities have offered a $20,000 reward for any tip that leads to an arrest and conviction. The reward is a clear indication of just how critical it is for the investigation to gain momentum. For anyone who might have seen something suspicious or heard a piece of information that didn't seem to add up, this could be the chance to help bring closure to a grieving family. But even with a reward on the table, the investigation still faces significant hurdles. The few clues that have emerged only raise more questions. For instance, there were reports that the apartment smelled strange. Neighbors and officers on the scene mentioned a weird odor when they first entered the apartment, which led them to believe something was amiss long before the bodies were discovered. Was this odor a sign of foul play? Did it indicate that something had been happening in that apartment long before the murders? Could it have been a sign that someone had been trying to clean up or cover up their tracks? This strange detail has yet to be fully explained, but it has raised suspicions that there might be more to the story than what was initially uncovered. Adding to the confusion is the state of the apartment itself. It was described as being in an unkempt condition, cluttered and dirty. While this may seem like an insignificant detail, it paints a picture of a place that had not been maintained. Could the disarray indicate tension or even a struggle? Was the apartment in such a state because it had been ransacked or because there had been an attempt to erase evidence? Investigators are still piecing together the timeline of what happened inside those walls, but the condition of the apartment has led many to speculate that something went terribly wrong in those final moments. This case is still open, and every piece of information could bring us closer to finding the truth. Could the argument between the couple have escalated into a deadly encounter? Was this a case of a relationship gone wrong, or was there something much darker at play? And most importantly, who was behind this violent act? Was this an isolated incident, or could someone else have been involved? The investigation continues, but with so many open questions, it's hard to know where the next clue will come from. Do you think this was an isolated incident, or could there have been someone else involved? Could the strange odor in the apartment and the state of the scene point to a deeper conspiracy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. Every theory, every piece of information brings us one step closer to solving this chilling mystery. The search for answers in the murder of Jocelynn Marshall and her boyfriend continues, but solving this case won't be possible without the help of the community. In cases like this, every small piece of information is crucial. No detail is too insignificant. It's often the smallest clue that can lead investigators in the right direction, so authorities are urging anyone who might know something, even if it seems trivial, to come forward. The importance of community support in cases like this cannot be overstated. While law enforcement does everything they can, they rely heavily on tips and information from the public to break cases wide open. It's often the people who live in the neighborhood, who know the area, and who might have witnessed something out of the ordinary that hold the key to solving these crimes. Sometimes, people might hesitate to speak up, unsure if what they know is important or not. But that hesitation can delay justice and prolong the pain for the victim's family. If you have any information about Jocelyn's murder, whether you saw something unusual that night or heard something that didn't make sense, now is the time to come forward. Your information could be what helps bring the person responsible to justice. The police are asking the community to help them connect the dots. Sometimes, the right tip at the right time can lead to the breakthrough the case desperately needs. If you are worried about your safety or concerned about coming forward, remember that you can remain completely anonymous. The authorities understand the fear some people may have about getting involved, and they have processes in place to protect your identity. The most important thing is getting the information out there so that justice can be served. Authorities are urging anyone with information to contact the Philadelphia Police Department at 215-686-TIPS. Your tip could be the one that solves this case and helps bring peace to the family of Jocelynn Marshall. In addition to the call for tips, there's also a $20,000 reward being offered for information that leads to an arrest and conviction in this case. This reward is a serious incentive for anyone who might have crucial information that could tip the scales in favor of justice. $20,000 could be life-changing for many, But more importantly, it represents the value of bringing closure to this family, a family who is left grieving and searching for answers. Could you be the key to solving this case? The reward is on the table, but more importantly, your involvement could be the catalyst needed to bring justice for Jocelynn, her boyfriend, and their grieving families. No matter how small or insignificant you think the information might be, your tip could make all the difference. So, if you know something, anything, don't hesitate. Call 215-686 TIPS today and help bring this case to the light. Every tip counts. As we look at the few pieces of evidence available, many potential motives for this brutal double homicide come to mind, but with no arrests and few leads, it's difficult to know which, if any, hold the key to understanding what really happened that night. One possibility is that this was an act of domestic violence gone terribly wrong. Could an argument between Jocelynn and her boyfriend have escalated into something much more violent? They were known to have occasional disagreements, but was there something deeper, something unresolved that caused their relationship to spiral out of control? It's possible that an intense moment of anger led to the tragic deaths, but the lack of signs of forced entry or defensive wounds complicates this theory. If this were a domestic dispute, wouldn't there have been some indication that the crime was fueled by desperation or panic? Or did it happen so quickly that the couple didn't have a chance to fight back? But what if the crime wasn't committed by the couple themselves at all? Could there have been an outside person involved? Someone who might have had a personal connection to either of them? One theory is that the murderer wasn't someone close to the victims, but rather an intruder who had some personal stake in the situation. Could this have been a robbery that went terribly wrong? Or maybe a dispute with a third party who had a hidden agenda? The lack of forced entry or obvious signs of a struggle makes it difficult to support this theory fully, but it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility. What if someone knew the victims well enough to get inside without raising suspicion? Another question that continues to linger is why, after weeks of investigation, there have been no arrests in this case. The absence of progress leaves many wondering. Is there a piece of evidence that investigators have overlooked, or are they being led down the wrong path entirely? With no clear suspect and no breakthrough in the case, it's starting to feel as though there's something about this crime that is intentionally hidden from view, something that's keeping the investigation stalled. Could there be a critical lead that hasn't been uncovered yet? Or is the killer still out there, carefully covering their tracks? One theory that has gained traction is that the killings could have been the result of a jealous lover, a third party driven by rage and possessiveness. Could one of the victims have had an affair, or were they involved with someone who couldn't handle the emotional fallout? Jealousy is a powerful motivator, and it's not uncommon for passionate feelings to turn violent when someone feels betrayed. In this case, could the murderer have been someone who was once close to one of the victims, maybe even someone who had been in a relationship with them before? This theory is backed by the fact that both victims were killed in the same manner, suggesting that the motive might have been intensely personal. If this was a crime fueled by jealousy, it would explain the brutality of the act and the lack of any immediate suspects, as the killer may have been someone hiding in plain sight. So, what do you think happened that night? Do you believe that the police are missing something, or could there be a more complex motive at play? Do you think this was an act of domestic violence, a crime of passion, or could someone from the outside have been involved? Could the theory of a jealous lover hold any weight? Let us know in the comments. What do you think is the reason behind this brutal double homicide? Every theory, no matter how far-fetched it may seem, could bring us one step closer to solving this haunting mystery. Jocelynn Marshall's murder remains a mystery, leaving her family, especially her siblings, grappling with the loss of someone they cherished deeply.
Growing up, it was me, my brother here, and Jocelynn. Like, were always together.
Whether it's a good times or hard times, like we always, had that bond between the three of us to really just pick each other up.
Uncalled for somebody is hard because she didn't deserve that. She did not deserve it. She was not in the streets. She's not a negative person.
Jocelynn Marshall leaves behind 2 sons, ages 18 and 6. So Bria, Walter, and their uncle, David Coppin, have already made the decision to raise those boys as their own.
We have to pray about it, but we got to be here for everybody, for each other, especially those boys. Like, this is the time where it takes a village.
We grieve with each other. We was always there for each other.
We're not going to easily fold, so we're standing here strong together, and hopefully justice will be served.
Her siblings, Brea and Walter, have bravely stepped forward, sharing their heartache and the responsibility they now carry of raising Jocelyn's 2 young children. Their grief is immeasurable, and they have expressed their commitment to keeping Jocelyn's memory alive, ensuring her children grow up with love and support. Despite the challenges, they remain hopeful that justice will prevail, and that the person responsible for taking Jocelyn's life will be brought to account. "We just want answers," they've said. "We want to know why this happened and who did it." Their strength and determination are inspiring, but the uncertainty surrounding this case continues to haunt them, and all those who loved Jocelynn. What really happened that night? Was it a crime of passion, an act of domestic violence, or something more sinister? Only time, and perhaps a helpful tip from someone with crucial information, will tell. As we close the chapter on this haunting case, the search for the truth must continue. The pain felt by her family can only begin to heal once justice is served, and the silence surrounding her death is broken. If you found this story interesting, make sure to subscribe to Vic's True Crime Stories and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this video with your friends, and together we can keep the conversation going. Let's get justice for Jocelynn. Her story deserves to be heard, and together we can help shine a light on the truth. Be sure to check out other true crime stories on the channel. If you're interested in similar cases, we have plenty more to explore, so don't forget to watch more of our videos. Every story, every case, brings us one step closer to uncovering the mysteries that still need answers.